Yesterday, Bitcoin saw another huge dump towards the $65,000, which was a very bearish move of course. But later we saw some huge important support holding strong for Bitcoin, and now we are seeing a bounce from this huge level. In my video of today I'm going to tell you exactly what we can expect for Bitcoin in the coming days and what the next move for Bitcoin will be. Is there going to be another big crash for Bitcoin? There's a lot of interesting data coming in for the Bitcoin and the Ethereum ETFs. There's also very interesting news coming in for Tesla and Ripple. But about that later in the video. I will also have a look at the two altcoins Bittensor TAO and Pepecoin, so you don't want to miss any of this. So please give this video a like, watch this video all the way to the end, and let's dive right into the charts. On the daily time frame, we can see that Bitcoin pumped through this huge resistance area under the $66,000 and we pumped all the way to the $69,000, and from there we saw a huge rejection coming in for the market for Bitcoin. We came back to this previous resistance to turn it into support, and this huge level around the 66,000 is now being tested as support, and we already can see a bounce from this level, which is very bullish. And earlier I made this drawing about the price of Bitcoin, and we could potentially see a retest of this resistance as support, and then we can come back up further to a test for higher prices, and then the next big resistance will be around the $69 again. And if Bitcoin is going to break this level to the top side, we could also test this one as support again and then come further back up. And then the next big resistance level will be around the $72,000, and that will be confluent with a lot of interesting resistance in the past, as we can see here. And after that, the way to the all-time high is open for Bitcoin. And a couple of days ago, I was discussing this bearish divergence for you on Bitcoin. We saw higher highs occurring on the chart, but we could also see lower highs occurring on the RSI, which meant that we saw a cooling off of the buying pressure. And we saw a huge crash for Bitcoin, and that's exactly what we saw on the RSI. So this was cooling off a little bit. But for now we can see some interesting things happen, because we can see a bullish divergence is unfolding for Bitcoin, because on the RSI we are creating lower lows, but on the chart we are creating higher lows, and this indicates a bullish divergence, and it already played out a little bit. So this is looking very bullish, and we can see a little bit of a spike here to the top side, and that's exactly what we can see in the price of Bitcoin. So let's see if we can see more top side from here for Bitcoin, because we can now see that the selling pressure is cooling off, and let's see if we can see more buying pressure coming into the market today. And yesterday the Bitcoin ETFs had another very bullish day again. We saw a total inflow of $192.4 million, so this is insane. And especially BlackRock was buying like crazy. They bought for more than $317 million. And we can see that the ARK Invest Bitcoin ETF and the Bitwise Bitcoin ETF are selling Bitcoin to the market. So this was having a little bit of a bearish effect. But overall, we are now seeing another huge day for the Bitcoin ETFs, which is very bullish. And we are coming now to the total cumulative inflow of almost $21.5 billion. So let's see if Bitcoin can pump up the price for Bitcoin even more and come back to this $25 billion mark. And if we then have a look at the Ethereum ETF, we saw another neutral day. We saw a total inflow of more than $1.2 million. So this was having a little bit of a neutral day. And I think the Ethereum ETF is a little bit of a flop already. But let's see if this week can end strong for the Ethereum ETF as well. And looking at the daily chart for Bitcoin, we can see that Bitcoin shifted from this downtrend into a huge uptrend. And this uptrend on the daily time frame is still intact. And as we can see here, we created a new higher high for Bitcoin. And we also retested this previous high as support. So this was the first big touch for Bitcoin, and we immediately see a bounce from this level. So let's see if Bitcoin can create a higher low from here. And that of course will be very bullish. And then we can just continue the bullish price action to the top side. So if Bitcoin is going to create more topside momentum, we want to gain this previous high and of course also this high. And then the next big resistance will be around these highs. So this will be the very interesting place for Bitcoin to create some price interactions, and that will be around the $72,000. But of course we could also see a bearish scenario play out, and that we're coming back to lower levels, because this previous resistance hasn't been tested as support yet, and this could mean that we can come all the way back to the $63,000, and then from there, if we're going to create a higher low, it will still be very bullish. But keep in mind that Bitcoin can come back to the $63,000 and make another big crash from here. And if we look at this chart with horizontal levels that act as support and resistance, we can see that Bitcoin is holding this $66,000 support very strong. And this was the most important support for Bitcoin right now, and this is holding strong. So as we can see here, a huge wick on the downside for the last daily candle, and now we're already seeing a little bit of a bounce. So let's see if Bitcoin can come back to the $68,000 and after that the $69.5 thousand. And if we break these levels to the top side, then the road to the all-time high is open. But first there's a huge resistance area around the $71.5, and this could be the very make or break point for Bitcoin in the coming weeks. And let me know in the comments if you think that Bitcoin is going to come back to this previous all-time high before the end of 2024, and in which month we're going to break the previous all-time high. And yesterday there was also a lot of interesting news coming in, and we also had some quarterly reports in, and as well Tesla had also their Q3 report in, and it says that none of their 763 million Bitcoin was sold in Q3 in 2024. So this is very bullish, and now I'm asking myself, when is Tesla going to accept Bitcoin as a payment? Because Elon Musk said that when Bitcoin was mined with 50% or more renewable energy, then he would accept Bitcoin again as a payment. But Bitcoin is already being mined by more than 60% of renewable energy. So let's see if Tesla is going to accept Bitcoin in the long term. And another interesting news article was coming in, and that was that the Ripple CEO said that the XRP ETF approval is inevitable. But my opinion about the ETFs for altcoin is that it's going to be a flop, just like the Ethereum ETF. And we can see not a lot of interest into the Ethereum ETF by institutional investors. So I think that Brett Garlinghouse, the Ripple CEO, is just shooting shots here. And I don't think that the ETF for XRP will be very bullish. And yesterday I've been talking about this chart on the daily time frame. We can see that Bitcoin created these lower highs on the chart, and we saw this huge resistance area coming into play. And we broke it to the top side last week, in which we saw a new higher high, and that means that we broke the downtrend for Bitcoin, which was very, very bullish. And now we saw a throwback to this previous resistance, and we turned it into support perfectly. So from this area, you could have entered the market for Bitcoin in the long, and we already saw a bounce to the top side. And as I'm always saying, you have to buy into the market at a retest, and we made a beautiful retest of the previous resistance as support. So I hope you entered the market here for Bitcoin in the long, and now you are already in some profits. So let's see if Bitcoin can continue the bullish momentum to the top side and create a new higher high. And if we then have a look at the monthly chart for Bitcoin, we can see Bitcoin was in the last 8 months inside of this consolidation formation after the big run up in this bull market. And now we can see this monthly candle is trying to break out of this huge consolidation formation. And the month of October still lasts 7 days. So if Bitcoin can close this monthly candle above this huge resistance area, then we can confirm the breakout. And then we can potentially see a retest of the resistance to turn it into support. And from there, we can see some exponential moves for Bitcoin happening. And this is especially what is making me bullish, because after this huge bull run, we are now seeing a new bull run occurring for Bitcoin. And the first interesting altcoin I want to have a look at is Bittensor TAO. We can see that Bittensor TAO was in this huge falling wedge to the downside, and we broke to the top side and we made a perfect bullish retest. And from this area I was telling you that I was buying more TAO for the long term. And then we saw a huge rise to the top side, and we broke several resistance areas, and at these resistance areas I also took some profits, just as I was saying on my socials. And now we can see a huge exponential move to the top side, but we are also seeing a little bit of a decline already happening. And this previous resistance was tested as support, but we are now seeing that we are falling below the support. So this previous resistance area has to be turned red again, because it's now acting as resistance again. And now we can come back to this huge next big support, and at this level I'm also very interested in buying more TAO for the long term. And as we're going lower and lower, I'm going to buy every time we touch a certain support area. But keep in mind that this previous resistance hasn't been tested as support, so potentially TAO can come back to all the way to this support to test it again. But personally, I'm going to buy every time we touch a certain previous resistance to turn it into support. But I think that TAO will come back to this level around the $350, and that's still a long road to go for TAO, of course. But from this level you can enter the market in the long, but also at this level you can enter the market in the long for TAO. And the next interesting altcoin I want to have a look at is Pepecoin. We can see that Pepe was in this huge downtrend on the daily time frame, and especially this price was getting squeezed into this apex. We saw a huge breakout to the top side. We gained this previous resistance, and then we returned it as support. So this is looking very bullish. And we are also seeing a huge rejection from this huge resistance area which we saw occurring because this was having a lot of price interactions in the past, and this was a very interesting take profit place after this huge breakout of this price compression for PEPE. And now we can see the price is grinding upwards, and we can also see a little bit of rejection coming in from this level. So let's see if PEPE eventually can break to the top side, or that we are going to see a bearish move of folding and that we'll come back to this previous support again. And if we're going back to this support, I'm going to buy more PEPE, and especially when PEPE is coming all the way back to this lower side support, then I'm going to buy in more heavily for PEPE, because I think that PEPE will still be very bullish in the long term, and I think the breakout target of this formation will be still getting hit after this huge downtrend, and this breakout target will be around the top side of the formation. So I think that PEPE will eventually break out to this huge resistance area, test it as support. From here you can enter the market in the long, and then we can aim for higher targets, and then the big first target will be the top side of the formation. And let me know in the comments if you still hold PEPE in your portfolio and what your thoughts about the future are for PEPE. So please give a like if you find this video useful. Don't forget to follow me on my other socials, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.